Are you a new real estate investor? Are you being lied to? The top myths, misconceptions, and just plain lies that you get from gurus, HGTV, and even your friends. That's what we're talking about today on the Sub2 Deals Show. Hey, deed grabbers, welcome to this episode of the Sub2 Deals Show, where we talk about all things subject to. Now, occasionally we will talk about other real estate investing topics, but it's always something to help you with your real estate investing business. Hey guys, before we get started today, I have an ask for you. Now, I know in YouTube protocol, it's always best to give first before you ask, but this ask is really for you. You know, we've been doing podcasts now somewhat inconsistently for about 6 years. I think we're getting close to 200 episodes. And we've covered a lot of topics, and most of them are creative financing, of course, because, well, that's what we do. But occasionally we do talk about some other things. We've had wholesalers on and lenders and rehabbers and landlords and all kind of people on here and covered all kind of topics. But today, I'd like to ask you, what topics would you like to hear us cover in the upcoming episodes? And maybe even a few lives here and there. We're considering starting some of that stuff up again. We used to do a weekly live called Goat Talk, and we stopped doing that a little while back, but we might bring back the occasional live if there's interest. So drop a comment. Let me know what questions you have or what topics you'd like to see us cover, and we'll be glad to do that for you on upcoming episodes. So that would help out a bunch. So thanks. So today we're talking about the top myths, lies, and misconceptions that new investors coming into the space believe. And the sources for these things are all over the place. It can be as simple as your friends telling you. Now, us experienced investors, we remember what it was like to get started in real estate investing and have Uncle Bob tell us, oh man, that's really risky. You probably shouldn't do that. You should probably keep your job down at the asbestos factory. It's much safer. And then there's also good old HGTV. Now, when I came up in the beginning days of real estate investing, it was Flip This House. And there was another program I watched that had a lady, I can't even remember that, Property Ladder. That was it, Property Ladder. But now it seems like there are dozens of them. And I'll tell you, they all follow pretty much the same format. It's a lot of BS. Those things are so scripted. And, they have to follow a certain format, finding the property and fixing it up. And then, of course, there's some big challenge that they run into during the fix up, the risk of going over budget. It's all very dramatic. And generally at the end of things, they come out of it. They somehow manage to pull it out and make this huge profit. And if it worked out that way every time, it would be great. But the truth is, for new people, it won't always work out that way. And that's why we're here. We want to make sure that that doesn't happen to you. And then there's always, the guru space that make things sound oversimplified and way too easy. And of course, you find out when you get started that things aren't that easy. And we talk about that all the time. Real estate investing is simple. In most cases, it's a formula that you have to follow to achieve profits and make money. Now, there are some deviations, and of course, you're dealing with people, and every situation is just a little bit different. For example, this afternoon, I'm going out to meet with a guy. We door knocked him a couple of weeks ago, and he acted a little strange at the very beginning. He wanted to get away from the front door and walk around to the front of the garage to talk to him. He was very friendly, but he didn't want to do it at the door. And I told Jody when I got back in the car, I said, his wife doesn't know that they're in foreclosure. And sure enough, he gave me his phone number, he gave me his email, and we started conversation in our CRM, keeping up with him. How are things going? Can we help? But our conversation a few days ago when we set up our appointment to come back and visit, he needed a little bit more time because he had to tell his wife what was going on. So not a good situation. That's going to be an interesting talk today, I'm sure. But anyway, you're dealing with people, so there are always things, always differences, little nuances that are going to change the deal. But today we're talking about the top misconceptions of newer investors, things they come into the space with these preconceived notions or these beliefs, and they're just not true. Now, these aren't in any certain order. There's not like a top one that I have. I mean, who knows what everybody really believes, but they are common, and we do see them in a lot of students. So let's get started. Number one, you need a ton of money or credit to get started. Now, that's generally going to come from friends, family, or acquaintances. Hey, listen, Uncle Bob says, what are you talking about? You can't invest in real estate. Do you have the money to do that sort of thing? And that's just not true. You don't always have to have money or credit to get started in real estate investing. I mean, that's what creative finance exists for. Now, there will be times that you'll need cash or access to it. And generally, depending on the type of investing that you're going to do, that's going to be at least for marketing purposes. You're going to have to do a couple of things. If all you're doing is getting started, and a common way to get started, people say that has no cost, is driving for dollars. Well, you got to have a car and you got to pay for gas. So there is some cost to most of the things that we do. But do you need a ton of money? Do you need excellent credit? Well, heck no, you don't. When I got started, most of you know my story. When I got started, I had really good credit. I didn't have a bunch of money. And what did I do to get the seed money for my business? I took a $5,000 credit card advance and opened a bank account with it, and I put it in there. And I figured, man, I can make minimum payments on this $5,000 until I can get my business rolling. That's a promise that I made to myself. I said, if I use all this money and I haven't bought any houses and I'm not making any money, then I'm out of business. And fortunately for me, it worked out okay. So that is the number one, well, not necessarily the top one, but the first one we're talking about today, myth, is that you need a ton of money or credit. You just don't. There are a lot of ways you can buy houses without any money. And let's say, for example, the appointment I told you we're going on later today. Now, this guy doesn't have a ton of equity. He's probably got, if we're talking real equity, he's probably got about 50,000 or so, but he's got a 2.7% interest rate loan. He's about 10,000 in arrears with the bank. And I'm thinking, probably what we'll wind up with if we buy that house is making up the arrears and maybe giving them a few $1,000s for moving money. So let's say we're all in for 15. Now, I can write a check for that, but if I couldn't, if I had credit card access with cash advance checks, I could do it with that. I could do it with a line of credit. I could do it with a private lender if I had someone who would lend for me in second position. So there are a lot of ways that I could step into that house with absolutely no money. Now, my favorite way to do that would be to write the contract that I'll make up the back payments of 10,000, give the seller 5,000, and then I'll market this house with seller financing during the due diligence and closing period, and I'll find a buyer that has 25,000 or so to give me as a down payment, and I'll make up the back payments and pay my seller out of my buyer's down payment money. Now, that's a no money down deal with an infinite return. So do you need cash or credit? Maybe not, depending on how you're going to do these deals. The second myth is passive income is immediate. Listen, when I got started, I determined very quickly that I wanted to build passive income. I wanted cash flow. I wanted to replace job income. I looked at a lot of ways to make money. Wholesaling seemed like a great way to make money, but it was a high-paid job, and I didn't want to trade one job for another. I wanted to create a lifestyle of freedom based on cash flow. There's nothing passive about getting your first few deals done, and you're not going to replace your job income overnight. Now, you may wholesale a property or flip a property and make a pretty good paycheck, but everybody doesn't do that. If you're going in for passive income, be prepared for that to take a while. Okay. Now, I set a goal early on that I wanted to leave my job in 12 months. Once I had proof of concept, once I had bought 3 or 4 houses, I decided that I could probably accomplish this goal within 12 months. So that was the goal that we set. We bought 25 houses by the end of the year and replaced our $60,000, $65,000, $70,000 a year job income. So we were able to get free that way. But passive income isn't immediate. And in the beginning, it's certainly not passive. So I don't think that's probably going to happen to you overnight. Now, the next myth or lie is a huge one for me, and that's that you have to scale your business to be successful. And that's just not true. Most of the people that I meet don't want to be the next real estate mogul. They don't want to own 10,000 doors. That's not what they're looking for. I realize a few of you out there really want to do that. You want to drive a Lambo. You want to have a private jet. And that's cool. If that's you, then you do that. But most people want to be financially free. They want to be able to pay for their kids' education. They want to be able to retire their parents in a way that's something more than being a greeter at Walmart and not being able to live on Social Security. They want to take their family on nice vacations. They want to spend time with their family and their kids before they're grown. And just a few deals a year can really be life-changing. Now, think about this for a minute. The median income in the United States right now is around $65,000 a year. Now, that's for a family income, $65,000 a year. Jody and I, our average deal value last year was over $71,000. Now, what does that mean? Well, there's some expenses involved in that. We do radio, we do some marketing, and we have a VA and do some other things. But just 2 or 3 deals a year will free you if that's what you're looking for. Now, when I got started, I wanted a better lifestyle than the one that I had at the moment, which was a typical middle-class family. I wanted something better. What did that mean? Well, maybe that meant that I needed to do 6 deals a year or 10 deals a year. Jody and I bought 11 houses last year and got pretty close to $1 million in profit buying 11 houses. Now, I teach the 12-house blueprint. Guys, if you haven't picked up the book yet, you can go to 12houseblueprintbook.com and pick it up, where I lay out in great detail exactly how to create a high 6-figure income buying 12 houses a year. It's a pretty good read. We're up to 21 5-star reviews on Amazon right now. We're actually one of the top bestsellers this past week under mortgage category. So we're doing okay over there. So check the book out. Most of the people that read it seem to really like it. But scaling is just not necessary. You don't have to buy 50 houses a year to make good money in this business and to really lead a lifestyle of freedom. The next myth on the list is that wholesaling is easy money. You know, when I got started, and I think even still today, wholesaling is looked at as the way that most new investors should get started, because it's really simple. It's really easy to do. You know, initially when I looked at wholesaling, I didn't like it that much. Well, one, because it seemed like just a better paying job, and I didn't really want that. But number two, it seemed like a constant source of pressure. You know, I've got to go out and I've got to find a house that I can buy really cheaply, way under market value in most cases. Okay, that's absolutely possible. But then I've got a very short window of time that I have to find someone who will buy that house from me and let me make money. Now, sure, their buyers list. Over time, you can develop a list of people that you know will probably buy the property and that sort of thing. But it seemed like a tremendous amount of pressure to have to put on myself day in and day out to really move these properties. And then if I can't find somebody to buy it, then I have to let the seller down unless I have the money to buy the house myself. So for those reasons, wholesaling didn't look that attractive to me. Now, an added element of difficulty today is that a lot of states are putting laws in place that make wholesaling very difficult. Notice I didn't say impossible, because there's almost always a workaround for that. but they're really putting things in place to make it difficult. And I'll tell you, it's just my opinion. There's nothing that I've seen that where someone has stated this, but I believe that the National Association of Realtors is on a mission to make sure that no real estate transaction in this country can take place without a licensed agent being involved. That means you can't freely buy and sell. Last month, actually, North Carolina introduced some legislation, and there are several points. And I did a podcast on this last week. Actually, you can go back and maybe I can get my VA to put a link somewhere here. You guys know I'm not very tech savvy, where you can go back and watch that. But there's so many points there to talk about. But one of the ones that I found especially just over the top was that you cannot communicate with a property owner. And they lay out all the ways, not by fax, not by email, not by oral communication, not by texting. No way. You can't have a conversation with a property owner about buying their residential real estate unless you intend to occupy that house as an owner occupant, unless a licensed realtor is involved. I mean, just really crazy stuff. And all of that is really meant to stop wholesaling and real estate transactions without agents, in my opinion. So is wholesaling easy money? I'm going to say no on that. Now, if you're a wholesaler doing 500 deals a year, you may say different. But for the typical new investor, it's not the easiest or the best way to go. Next myth, buy, fix, and flip is the fastest way to wealth. Well, I don't think buy, fix, and flip is necessarily the best way to wealth. I think the ability to do a rehab is a good skill to have if you have the personality for it. I think rehabbing probably has the most moving parts of anything that we do. Not only do you have to negotiate to buy a deal at a really good price or have wholesalers that'll bring those deals to you, but you have to know how to estimate rehab cost accurately in a market where prices are insane. You have to be able to monitor the market and understand what's happening right now. Right now, we seem to be transitioning fairly quickly to a buyer's market where we've been in an extreme seller's market for several years. So that's an adjustment for rehabbers to have to make. And this is an adjustment for experienced people. Remember, the focus of this is new. If you're new, should you be a rehabber? Well, maybe if you're a good deal negotiator and you happen to be a contractor, because not only do you have to be able to estimate rehab costs accurately, if you're not a contractor, you've got to be able to find and manage contractors. And you guys have heard me say a lot, there's a reason that they're called contractors. I'm pretty experienced. I've been doing this for 26 years. And I'll tell you, just in the last couple of years, and we did a couple of rehabs here since we've been in Northwest Arkansas. And I'm telling you, I know the things to look for. I know the rules to follow. And we've still run into a couple of doozies on the contractor list here. So it can happen to anybody. I can't imagine trying to do a rehab today as a new investor. Is it the best way to build wealth? Well, if you don't lose money on the deal, it might be. But you really have to look for the factors. Rehabs carry stress, they carry debt, and they carry risk. If you don't know how to manage people, if you don't know how to accurately figure rehab numbers. So I don't know if that's the best thing for new people to do. Oh gosh, here's a huge one, folks. You need an LLC first before you buy a house. I'm going to tell you, when I got started, I am a true, ready, fire, aim type person. I want to get started. I want to know enough where I don't get into trouble, but I want to get out there and get started. I bought my first half dozen properties before I ever had an entity. I took title in my own name. I didn't know anything about trust. And I just operated under this idea. If you're worried about asset protection, you need some assets to protect first, okay? And there are a lot of people out there that'll tell you, listen, you need to sign up for this $5,000 package and this company will do your LLC for you and help you build, pick your business name and do all of these things. You can file an LLC online in most states, except I think California. There's a couple of states out there that they're pretty outrageous. But in most states, it's pretty inexpensive to do. Do you need some guidance in setting up your LLC? Well, I guess that really depends on you. If you have an LLC, you want to make sure that you execute all the proper paperwork, your operating agreement, and so on. Because I think a recent survey said that 90% of real estate investors that have an LLC don't even have an operating agreement. And I believe that. I believe a lot of times we pass on some of the details, and that becomes a problem if you need that LLC. But the truth is, most of the time, you're not going to need it. But do you need an LLC before you buy a house? Absolutely not. Go out there, talk to a seller, make a deal, buy a house, and then worry about an LLC. It's not something, you don't have to have business cards before you get started. It's a good thing to do, but you don't have to have them. Okay, our next myth of the day is that subject to and seller financing are illegal or just plain risky. I got to tell you, in 26 years, I've had countless attorneys and real estate agents tell me that subject to is illegal. And it's really just a matter of them just not knowing. It's absolutely not illegal. Check your HUD lines 203 and 503, existing loans taken subject to. As of today, May the 12th, 2025, subject to and seller financing are still legal. Now, who would have ever thought we would see legislation trying to make it against the law to even speak to a property owner? But who knows? But as of today, they are still legal. They are still viable strategies. And there are strategies that let you create wealth and buy a lot of property with little to no money in a lot of cases. Okay, so our next myth is you need to be a licensed agent. Now, as of today, that's not true. I've been doing real estate for over a quarter of a century. I've never had a license. I've almost always had access to the things that licensed agents have, though. The biggest of those being MLS access. And I'm going to tell you, I've never lived in a place or done business in a place that I couldn't find an agent that would give me MLS access. It's really pretty simple if you talk to enough agents and know the questions to ask and know how to present the opportunity for that. As of today, you don't have to be a licensed agent to be an investor. And I'm going to tell you, honestly, I think most of the time it's more of a liability than it is an asset. And I say that because most of the agents that I have spoken with that have a negative view of investors, their biggest problem with us is that we make some pretty incredible deals. For example, last year we bought a house for $40,000 and sold it a couple hours later for $151,000. Now, the agent representing the buyer in that transaction really frowned on us and how we stole that house. Now, she didn't have a problem representing the buyer in the situation, and she didn't have a problem collecting and cashing her commission check. So I don't really understand what her problem was. Most of their problems seem to stem from the fact that they feel obligated to educate a seller on the true value of their house. This is all I know. The lady I bought that house from, she called me. She told me the house was a burden and she wanted to get rid of it. I asked her how much she wanted. She told me and I said, okay. So that sounded like a pretty fair transaction. I don't know how most of you operate, but if you go to a yard sale this weekend, and I see people do this all the time on YouTube and Reels and everything else, that buy stuff at yard sales or garage sales and flip it on eBay. And, if you see a figurine that because of your education is worth $200 and it's on a 25-cent table, are you going to negotiate to pay a higher price with that figurine seller at that garage sale? I don't think so. And I don't feel like I should have to do that in a real estate transaction either, so I don't. If my seller gives me a price that works for me, then I'll buy that house. If they give me a price that's too high for me to buy it, then I'll renegotiate. So that's just me, though. But if having a license meant that I would have to negotiate in a transaction where I'm trying to buy, if I would have to negotiate on behalf of my seller, that's just not something that I want to do. So do you need a license? Not today. Maybe in the future, but you don't have to do it today. The next myth, TV flipping shows are how real estate investing works. I think we talked about that a little bit earlier. But remember that TV edits out 90% of the screw ups and the real things that come along. They follow a very specific script. And if you watch enough of them, you'll see they found a deal, they negotiated it till they could buy it at the price they wanted. There's always some unforeseen thing that pops up in the middle of the rehab, something that goes wrong that they have to mitigate and work through. It's very stressful, but they get it done. And at the last minute, they pull things out and they make a tremendous profit. And if things really worked that way, it would be great. But the truth is, they don't always work that way. A lot of times those unforeseen things come up and you can't fix it and you lose money on the deal. And so that's why I always say certainty is the most important thing. Okay. Next myth, you should automate and outsource right away. When you're getting started in your business, you need to do everything. You need to understand very intimately how to do every function of your business before you even think about outsourcing or automating. And I'll tell you this too, automating your business, this is a people business. And I know there are people out there, especially wholesalers or whatever, that cold call and text 1,000 people a day. And I know they get deals from that. For me, I would rather have 10 real conversations a month with people that have a real estate issue. Because I know if I can talk to 10 people a month, I can probably buy a house. And that's really all that I need to do. But that's me. If you want to text 1,000 people a day, and have, most of the conversations be nothing, that's fine. But when you get started, know how to do everything. That way, when you hire somebody to do it for you, you can tell them exactly how you want it done. And in the beginning, you should have plenty of time to learn this business. If you want to stay in it for a long time, really understand how it works. Most of the long-term investors that I know, when they got started, they were a one-man show. I did that for years. And even today, we only have one VA. Jody and I work this business with one VA. So again, we don't want to buy 100 houses a year. We're just looking for 10 or 15. The last myth that I'm going to share with you today, if the seller says no, it's a dead deal. I can't tell you the number of times that follow-up makes a difference. I'm sitting in a house right now that Jody and I bought subject to about 1.5 years ago from a seller that said no. We put them in our CRM. We did follow-up, texting, RVMs, emails to them, just checking in. How are things going? Can we help in any way? And 3 months later, he changed his mind. He needed to get out of the house. He gave us a call, and we were able to buy it. So it worked out real well for us. Follow-up is so important. And you do, at some point, when you're getting enough leads, when you're having enough sellers say no to you, you need a way to follow up with those people, because a lot of times over time, a no will turn into yes. So I hope this helps, guys. These are some myths. If you're new in real estate investing, don't listen to some of this stuff, man. Get in there, find somebody to work with. If you're not a member, join your local RIA. Meet some people that do what you want to do. When you're ready, an education with somebody that's been doing this for a really long time is a good thing. You should check us out at Sub2 Max. We'll be glad to show you the ropes on how to do creative finance, seller financing, and the 12-house blueprint. Remember, you can get the 12-house blueprint at 12houseblueprintbook.com. This will show you 12 houses a year. It's really all you need. You can create financial freedom, and you can do it in 12 months. That's what I did. I've done it, and I can show you how to do it too. So guys, appreciate you watching. Hope this helps. And until our next time together, get out there, talk to some sellers, buy some houses.